click Save, we've got our media room, and we're ready to add some devices. So I'm going to start by adding a TV to port I5, and as we saw before, when I add devices to this room, I only see the devices on the room. And I'm going to continue on and add some other devices. We've got a Blu-ray and a cable box, and the other thing we have now, our RS-232 device, which is an AVR, and this attaches to port S1, which we included in the room definition earlier. Let's take a real quick look as we're connecting this up at the pinout for RedEye Pro. So this is what, if you're looking at the back of RedEye Pro, these are the pin definitions. Thing to know here is that RedEye Pro is a DTE. It's data terminal equipment, which means it works like a computer. If you attach it to a DCE, which our receiver is, then you should be able to use what's called a straight throw cable. If you're connecting RedEye Pro to another computer, for example, if you're debugging, then you'll need to use a null modem adapter, which flips the receive and transmission pins, basically. So we add our AVR, and this is how it looks. As before, we have a port section where we can change the port assignment. We can switch it to port S2 if we want. But let's look at the port settings. This is the port settings page for serial control. And there are a number of switches and values we can use. At the bottom, we have an advanced settings section as well, which allows us to change any properties that aren't listed up top. So the first thing we want to do is change the baud rate. So we'll tap on the baud rate row here. And our AVR uses 115.2 kbps for its baud rate. So we choose that from the list and tap Save. And most of this other stuff is what we need, 8N1, that's all fine. But before we move on, let's take a look down at the advanced settings section here. So internally, RedEye uses the STTY program to configure its serial ports. And you can read on the, STTY is a popular Unix program, and you can read all the documentation that you want. Just Google STTY, but here's a link to free BSD documentation on it. You can enter valid STTY arguments in the advanced section, and RedEye will add these arguments to the end of its configuration string. I should point out, if your STTY argument is invalid, if there's a typo or if you capitalize it incorrectly, then your serial port configuration will fail to load. And in that case, RedEye Pro is going to default to sane mode. And sane mode is 9600 baud, 8-bit words, no parity, 1 stop bit. So if you set your serial port to, like we did here, 115.2 kbps, and you added some advanced settings,